Background. The modern Irish legal system is different from the English common law tradition. Ireland is often described as the first inventor of the common law. The dominance of the English law was consolidated by Oliver Cromwell's military campaign, which forced many Irish landowners to resettle in Connaught. The victory of the Protestant William of the Orange over Catholic King James II at the Battle of Boyne in 1691 led to brutal repression of the Catholics in the form of the penal law. The enactments passed during the 18th century were aimed at displacing Catholics from the political and economic power. Catholics were excluded from education and their property rights were heavily restricted. The English Parliament repealed poisoning law under the Irish Appeal Act 1783 from that time until 1800. The Irish Parliament, known as Grattan Parliament, sought to improve the situation of Catholics through the enactment of the Roman Catholic Relief Act 1793, which conferred a limited right to vote and admission to practice at the bar. However, in light of the French and American Revolution and the failed rebellion of 1798, the Act of Union 1800 was passed. This act dissolved the Irish Parliament and established the Westminster Parliament in London as the sole legislative body of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. This act centralized government power in London until its establishment of the Irish Free State in 1922. The Crown representative in Ireland was the Chief Secretary for Ireland, who was a member of the cabinet. The British administration had its Irish headquarters in Dublin Castle under the control of the Under-Secretary and the Crown Official Representative in Dublin, the Lord Lieutenant. Reform. In the wake of the Industrial Revolution and the influential voting of Bentham and Mill, the urgency of reform for legal institutions became increasingly apparent. Reforms were introduced by the Supreme Court of Judicature Act 1873 and its Irish counterpart in 1877. This act merged of the administration of common law and equity to create an unified court system. The Supreme Court of Judicature was established, consisting of the High Court of Jurisdiction and the Court of Appeal, which had appellate jurisdiction. In the civil side, the country court dealt with less serious matters than the assize claims were initiated by means of a civil bill. In contrast of procedure on their English counterpart, this remained basis for many claims initiated in the country court successor in the circuit court. Following the Irish Primary, the campaign for new land law reform became the focal point in Irish politics. The intensive campaign of the land legislature led to the passing of the Lowland Iron Act 1881, which established the Irish Land Commission and Great Irish Tenant Farmer, the three Fs: fair rent, freedom of sale, and fixity of tenure. Subsequent act established land purchase scheme, whereby tenants could obtain long-term loans at reduced interest to purchase the freehold title to their land. Independence. Despite this important reform called for the repeal of the Act of Union, amplified Home Rule in the ideal objective of Irish nationalists, the Irish Parliamentary Party led by Charles Stewart Parnell drew support from the Liberal government on the issue. However, the transient opposition of Ulster Unionists and Conservatives meant that Home Rule was not possible until the passing of the Government of Ireland Act 1940. The act was postponed for the duration of World War I, but was in any case overtaken by subsequent events. The failed 1916 Rising and the heavy-handed British response to its hardened public attitude, resulting in a landslide victory for Sinn Féin at the 1980 election, thus signaling the political defeat of the Home Rule and of the Irish Parliamentary Party. Elections for the new parliament were held in May 1921 despite having rejected the act. Sinn Féin declared that the election was to be regarded as election to BELAJAR. It won 124 of the 128 seats to what, in the terms of the 1920 Act, was the House of Commons of Southern Ireland. In Northern Ireland, the Act had been accepted and its parliament was opened in June 1921. New court system. When Minister passed the Irish Free State Constitution Act 1922, it repealed the Government of Ireland Act 1920 insofar as it applied to Southern Ireland. The Dáil enhanced the constitution of the Irish Free State Act 1922 implementing the Irish Free State Constitution, which was based on the term of the treaty. The Constitution enshrined the separation of power between the executive, legislative, and juridical arms of government. On juridical side, the Supreme Court, the High Court, and Court of the Local and Limited Jurisdiction were established. The Constitution provides a right of appeal from Irish courts to the Juridical Committee of the Privy Council. The transition to the new court system was complicated by the fact that two court systems had been operated since 1920, the Ordinary Session Court and the Dáil Court. The latter compromised that parish court, which dealt with the most minor civil and criminal matters, appeal from the parish court. New Constitution. This structure was repeated the 1937 Constitution and again when the court were re-established in 1961, which was necessary by the enactment of the new Constitution in 1937 and remained the same until the establishment of the Court of Appeal in October 2014. Following the 33rd Amendment to the Constitution, pre-1922 statute and common law remain in force to a extent that they are consistent with the Constitution. The 1922 Constitution was amended numerous times up to 1936 to the point where the vestiges of the treaty had effectively been erased. This amendment included removing the oath of allegiance, abolishing the right of appeal to the Privy Council, removing all reference to the Crown, abolishing the Senate and the office of Governor General, and conferring upon Executive Council the power to enter into international treaties and to appoint diplomatic representatives. Further amendment to the Constitution was being necessitated by Ireland membership of the European Union, which has imposed the cession of degree of sovereignty and the subordination of national law to European law. Moreover, a significant amendment was applied pursuant to the Good Friday Agreement, when the Ireland removed its territorial claim to the Northern Ireland and replaced it with the principle of unity by consent.